It's been some time, hasn't it? You've come up in the world.
I could say the same about you.
I wonder if your darker half would agree.
Exactly what kind of a lawyer are you?
A really good one.
We have a long road ahead of us. Much to do.
Oh my God!
The King is back, everyone. Marvel released a new teaser for Daredevil Born Again with a bunch of new footage that wasn't in the Comic-Con trailer, so we'll break it all down. There's also a bunch of footage for other upcoming shows, both this year and next year, so I'll do separate videos for like the really big stuff later this week too. Just because Agatha All Along is ending, they're like, oh yeah, and by the way, we have all this other stuff that's coming. Some of it before the end of this year. Daredevil Born Again is releasing March 4th next year. I'll be doing episode videos for that, just like I did for the original Daredevil Netflix series and for all the other stuff that they're releasing during this trailer. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get everything. And I love the way that they tee up the trailer too, with Deadpool coming to the TVA, and they're making it seem like the TVA is showing him all the different shows inside the MCU, like you're going to be jumping around in all these different shows if he's like the new Stan Lee getting cameos on every single thing that they release. That would actually be pretty funny. I would be totally okay if Deadpool replaces Stan Lee as the guy that cameos in every single thing. One of the other reasons why they're using Deadpool to tee this up and he's in this trailer is because they're releasing Deadpool and Wolverine on Disney Plus during November this year, just in a couple weeks. Just covering the new Daredevil Born Again footage during this video though, they start on the shot of Muse from the more recent comics. He's meant to be the big villain of Daredevil Born Again Season 1. Part of the idea is that Daredevil and Kingpin have to put aside their differences to deal with him. They even revealed that when the series picks up, they've called a truce since the end of Daredevil Season 3. The way that Charlie Cox talked about it, he said they've agreed to stay in their own lane. So like Fisk running for mayor and Daredevil running his law practice, they just kind of left each other alone to do their own thing. Next big scene might remind you of something from the original Daredevil Netflix series, and this is also meant to hammer home the idea that this is the same continuity, like this is just like Daredevil Season 4, essentially, of the Netflix series. If you couldn't tell, it's Kingpin and Vanessa having dinner in front of the painting from Daredevil Season 1 that he bought from her when they first met. It's meant to be Rabbit in a snowstorm, but you notice there's a blood splatter on it too behind Vanessa. That's meant to parallel the white that he's wearing, which should also remind you of Daredevil Season 3 on the Netflix series because he got arrested and sent to prison when he was wearing the white suit. And Vanessa wearing the red in front of the red part of the painting here with the blood splatter. I think the idea here is that the blood splatter is actually from his fight with Daredevil at the end of Season 3, and it's become symbolic for him, so he didn't have the painting cleaned up. He just left the blood on the painting and just hung it up in a different place in his house. Doesn't it feel very Kingpin of him to hang that up and have dinner next to it all the time with his wife? Like he's been eating dinner next to this art piece that's representative of his big battle with Daredevil during the original series. Then we get the brand new Daredevil Born Again logo. Notice if you zoom and enhance on it, we got like a nice shiny HD version of it now. You can actually see the New York City skyline against this red sky in the background of the logo here. Like it's New York in the logo. Part of the reason why they're calling it Daredevil Born Again is because he's essentially born again into the MCU, but the way they're doing it, they're saying that this was always in the MCU, like the Netflix series is canon to the MCU, but it's essentially the characters being born again in this new fashion, this new series, but really it's meant to be more like Daredevil Season 4. If you're a longtime subscriber to my channel and you watch my videos on Daredevil Season 3 back in the day, that was actually also based on the comic book Daredevil Born Again run by Frank Miller. So it's also meant to be ironic, like they're taking the name of an arc that they use for Season 3 to do Season 4. Even though the story arc for the Daredevil Born Again Season 1 is nothing like the Daredevil Born Again story arc in the comics. We see Daredevil in one of his new costumes, remind you, we see several different new Daredevil costumes during the trailer, standing up during his fight with another villain. I think this is meant to be the one with Muse, like they just break it up across the trailer in a couple different places, because the only fights you really see him have in this trailer are against Muse and against the returned Bullseye. That's right, you see him fighting Bullseye in Bullseye's new costume. One of the new complaints about his new suit is that he doesn't have the double Ds on it. Make all the jokes you want about him having double Ds. But I think the idea is that'll be part of his arc, and he will eventually get the double Ds on his chest by the end of the season or by season 2. Then we actually see him reuniting with Kingpin on the New York City street, with Kingpin saying it's been some time, hasn't it? Since the end of season 3. It's also meant to be a tongue-in-cheek kind of joke, like been a long time since we've seen each other during that Netflix series. This is after Kingpin has become mayor. This is one of his new aides. He's sort of like the new version of Wesley, you could think of him. Notice it feels a lot like that scene from Spider-Man No Way Home at the beginning, where everyone pulls their phones out and is videotaping what they're doing and posting it on the internet. Daredevil looks really pissed off, so it seems like he did not expect to see Fisk, or maybe they just bumped into each other by coincidence here on the street. The look of disgust on his face wants to punch him the minute he opens his mouth. Then we see a very clear shot of John Bernthal's Punisher with his hair cut, because the first time we actually saw him in the last big trailer from Comic-Con, his hair looked all crazy. He had this beard like he hadn't shaved in a long time. So this is after he's cleaned himself up a little bit. All the supplies behind him too makes it seem like he's hiding out in wherever this is. Kingpin says as they cut across a couple different scenes, you've come up in the world, and part of the idea, like you see Matt Murdock walking into the courthouse here and looking at the courtroom, and part of the idea that Marvel and Charlie Cox explained is that since the events of Daredevil Season 3, his law practice with Foggy Nelson and Karen Page has actually been doing very, very good. Because they called the truce and he's not been spending all this time going after Fisk, he's dedicated himself to the law practice, and because he's a very good lawyer, like make all the Spider-Man No Way Home jokes, very good lawyer, he's been winning all kinds of cases, so they've been doing really well, like the law firm itself is doing very well. Then you see him at the diner basically having this meeting because they haven't met each other in a long time, like it's been a long time since they've actually seen each other in person. And he says, I could say the same about you because Fisk ran for and won the mayorship of New York City and has been, quote unquote, trying to clean it up his way, doing things Kingpin's way. Then you see him in the white suit and Vanessa in her red dress with this big party here. It just seems like they're having a big celebration. Not sure what's going on with them walking out of the bank vault here. Maybe this is part of the entrance to his actual place. Like he actually put a bank vault on the door to his apartment. That would also feel like a very Kingpin kind of thing to do. When he tells Daredevil, I wonder if your darker half would agree, you have to remember the Kingpin knows that Matt Murdock is Daredevil. That's why he's saying that. Daredevil also knows all the shady, really, really crazy stuff that Kingpin has done, but like I said, after the events of Daredevil Season 3, they agreed to call a truce, and I think this is just meant to be a continuation of that ending. Maybe during the events of Echo and the 5-year time jump when we saw him going after Kingpin's men, he was just trying to clean up the city, what Kingpin was doing shadier stuff, but not directly going after Kingpin, and that was what the truce was all about. Like, not directly moving against Kingpin, but going after his larger organization that Maya Echo was working for. So the idea is that he's not letting Kingpin do all kinds of illegal stuff all over the city all the time. It's just that he's not going directly after him. Not sure where he's walking through this crowd here at night, but there's all these people. It might be part of a rally or like something really big going on that's Kingpin related. As he continues to mention his darker half, he opens his bolo sticks where he keeps them here. These are part of the same ones that we saw him using during the Echo series earlier in the timeline during the 5-year time jump and during the She-Hulk series. This scene of him crashing through the window at Josie's bar from the Daredevil Netflix series, like the same place where Josie's used to be, is him fighting Bullseye with them crashing through the window, like their fight just spills over through the window. I think part of the idea is that Bullseye, after he gets out of prison, like you can see him getting out of prison here in his prison jumpsuit, goes after Karen Page and Foggy Nelson, trying to complete the job that he tried to start during Daredevil Season 3. Like during Daredevil Season 3, he tried to kill Karen Page. Based on the other footage here of them in their regular clothes outside Josie, it just seems like they're at the bar and then later that night, Bullseye comes after them. Then after they chuckle at the tongue-in-cheek comments like Kingpin knows what he's been doing as Daredevil, and Daredevil knows what Kingpin has been up to too at night, really important shot of the big upgrade that Daredevil has got with all the special effects and that big MCU Marvel money that Disney's been spending on it. This is something that we never got to see during the original Netflix series. Daredevil using his sticks to swing across the buildings, almost Spider-Man style. It's meant to be more like comic book Daredevil swings from the buildings with his sticks. I think they would have done this during the Netflix era of Daredevil, but they just didn't have the money for the special effects for something like that at the time. Then we get a much longer fight scene of him against the Muse villain, but there's a bunch of interesting stuff going on in the background of Muse's lair. So this is meant to be like his comic book lair. He's a more recent comic book villain. Notice in the background, he has a couple paintings of Punisher's skull logo. Part of the idea in the comics is that he idealizes Punisher for going after what he sees as villains in the hardcore methods that the Punisher has. The problem with the Muse villain, though, is that he's a full-blown serial killer and just really gets vicious. Like, it turns into like a full-on Saw horror movie, the way he treats the people that he goes after. He goes mostly after politicians, judges that he thinks are corrupt, the police that he thinks are corrupt, but they're not meant to be quite as much villains as, say, someone Punisher would go after. So that's why Muse is viewed as like a full-blown serial killer and Punisher is not. Part of the idea during the series is what he is doing, killing all these people, is so much worse than what Kingpin does. It makes him the main villain of the series, so Kingpin and Daredevil have to put their differences aside to deal with him. There's a lot of other side stuff going on during the Punisher arc too. Don't worry, we'll get to that in a second. Muse's big claim to fame, though, is that he's an artist and he uses his killings to create his art pieces, like the blood, the body parts, everything. That's why it's so gruesome. This is actually part of that new fight with Bullseye after he gets out of prison in Bullseye's new suit. Now, it's not a comic book accurate Bullseye suit, but I think he might eventually get a comic book accurate Bullseye suit. Not clear where they are exactly here. It might be near Josie's and their fight just spills over into Josie's. This might be Karen Page's apartment that they're in that he breaks into. Love some of the classic Daredevil action too with his sticks here against Muse. This is actually part of a totally different fight, not against Muse, not against Bullseye, but it's when he's just acting as Matt Murdock in the middle of the day at a bank that gets robbed that also just happens to have Kamala Khan's father working there. Like, he works at the bank, Daredevil just happens to be there in his regular clothes because it is the middle of the day and the bank gets robbed, so he takes down the robbers while it's happening. Then they have the funny scene of him picking his glasses up and Kamala Khan's father being like, "What kind of lawyer are you?" And he makes the Spider-Man No Way Home joke a really good one. If you haven't been to New York City, you have to remember that Kamala Khan's family is from Jersey City. Jersey City is actually relatively close to Hell's Kitchen, so the idea is that he just probably commutes every day from Jersey City to work inside Manhattan. But because he appears during this, I'm not expecting to see a cameo from Miss Marvel. Like, tonally, it just doesn't feel like she fits with the Daredevil character. There's a bunch of different footage for the other upcoming series. I'll do separate trailer videos for all that stuff, like the Ironheart, Marvel Zombies, Wonder Man, the Eyes of Wakanda, Black Panther series. Don't worry, I'll get those out as soon as I can. They're all meant to be very, very different. Like, some of them are animated, some of them are animated in different ways. But then we get more Daredevil Born Again scenes with Kingpin in the white suit pounding his desk. This looks like in his mayor's office at his desk. His speech saying we have a long road ahead of us is from this different scene where he's addressing what seemed like his staff and some reporters where he's wearing a regular business suit behind the flags. This is probably right after he takes office, like right after he wins the campaign. He says they have much to do. That's also meant to be tongue-in-cheek, like Marvel Studios has much to do to actually turn the ship around. And we get a full-on fight scene with Daredevil and Punisher, with him wearing his Punisher suit with the skull logo against a bunch of cops inside what looks like somebody else's apartment building. It looks like the cops come after Punisher, and then Daredevil drops in through the skylight and joins the fight to help him out. Love the fact that Daredevil headbutts one of these dudes. I think they're the same cops that they're fighting in the streets during this other scene here outside. This is probably from the later episodes, just because Punisher's cleaned himself up. He started wearing his Punisher skull logo again. Part of the idea, I think, is during the series, some of the cops around the city are wearing Punisher's skull logo, doing a ton of shady stuff, so Punisher is going after corrupt cops. Maybe some of them are on Kingpin's payroll, because part of the idea is that Kingpin runs for mayor on an anti-vigilante campaign, mostly spurred on by the crazy stuff that Muse does, using him as sort of like a launching platform. Like, look at this terrible villain going after all these people, this crazy vigilante. We need to stop all vigilantes. But it uses that campaign as an excuse to go after the heroes like Daredevil, Spider-Man, other heroes in New York City, branding them as vigilantes, like the other Defenders characters. For those asking, yes, all the other Defender series are now canon to the MCU as well too. Jessica Jones, I think, is supposed to be the first other one to come back next to Daredevil. I don't know if they're saving her for season 2, they're just going to mention her during season 1, but like even Iron Fist is supposed to come back at some point, Luke Cage is supposed to come back at some point eventually. Those other characters might not be till like season 3 or season 4, assuming that Daredevil eventually does get past season 3 and season 4, really hoping that it actually does. There's a bunch of new stuff going on here, but I did a separate Comic-Con trailer video with a whole bunch of different footage. I'll link that at the end of this too, just because it's very, very different from this trailer. Just because they're getting ready for D23 Brazil and there'll be a Daredevil Born Again panel there and a bunch of other panels like the Thunderbolts trailer, we'll probably get a brand new, much fuller Daredevil Born Again trailer at that, as well as trailers for other stuff as well. That's going to be in a couple weeks. Whatever new stuff they wind up releasing or reveal, of course I will do videos for that when it does happen. Make sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Everybody click here for that other Daredevil Born Again Comic-Con trailer with all the other different footage, and click here for all my other brand new trailers for this stuff. I'll update the link as soon as I post all those videos too.